Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. Just some ground rules. Anytime you're hungry, you need to use the restroom, please make yourselves comfortable. I want you fed and being able to listen openly to what we say. My name's Nora Silver. I'm the co-instructor for Social Sector Solutions. I'm a faculty member here at the Haas School of Business. I've been here for 15 years. I founded the Center for Social Sector Leadership, which houses Social Sector Solutions as a class. My co-instructor is Paul Jansen here, who is a director emeritus from McKinsey & Company, also an adjunct professor, and we've been co-teaching this course for 11 years. This will be our 12th year. Every year it is different depending on the student teams and the clients. But I want to give you an overview of S-Cube. That's where we're going to start today. Then I want to talk about the particular projects for this year. Some of our team leads are here who can talk to you about what they're looking for in their teams. And then we're going to hear from 2 team members from last year about their experience. We have some questions to ask them and to open it up to you. So could I just hear who's in the room? First of all, how many MBAs do we have? Okay, great. How many graduate students from other schools? Okay, tell me where. Now that you've eaten, I'll start over here. Okay. Where? Public health?
No, Goldman.
Goldman? Anybody else? Public health and Goldman.
Development practice.
Development practice. Okay, great. And any undergrads? Okay, great. So we've got a really good mix. That's terrific. So I want to speak to all of you. Everything will be the same until the very end when we talk about the commitment and how you get into the class, okay? Everything else is the same, and once you're in the class, everything is the same. So let me talk a little bit about why people take S-Cubed and what you're going to get out of it. So we designed this not to create management consultants, although that's one reason why a lot of people take the course. But what we're really trying to do is teach you good data-based problem solving that you can use in any realm of your professional or even for that matter, personal life. We're trying to teach you how to persuade decision makers to act on recommendations that you're making. And we're trying to help you prepare organizations for entrepreneurial success. That's really what this course is designed around. That's our thinking, Paul and my thinking, as we designed it, as we teach it. Now, from your point of view, why students have taken this in the past is because they are interested in management consulting, and you may be exploring it, you may want to go into it, and you may want to work with some of the McKinsey consultants because each of your teams has your own McKinsey coach. Other reason why people take the course is to experience working with a social sector organization. You may come from whatever other background and be curious about what's the social or nonprofit sector like. How are decisions different? How is data different? That's one thing we provide. And then finally, you may fall in love with one of our clients. One of the issues may be near and dear to your heart, you're passionate about, or you want to explore. So that's the reason that generally the people will take social sector solutions. So let me tell you a little bit about what the course components are, what you'll learn. It is a course. It's an MBA course. For the undergrads, you get in as an independent study. For all the other graduate students, you enroll as an MBA course, and we enroll you. But important to know, the course is every Tuesday from 6 to 9:30, so it's a time you absolutely have to be there. In addition to that, we have a kickoff and a finale where we bring everyone, all students, all clients, all McKinsey coaches together on these 2 dates that you see up there. While the course is going on, there are 15 weeks. And there are 3 different buckets that we're trying to teach you and have you experience. So the first bucket is about consulting skills. We're going to teach you how to create a scoping letter. We're going to teach you how to create a work plan. We're going to teach you how to develop a storyline. And we're going to teach you how to present to a client and have influence. So that's one bucket of skills. The next bucket is about how you perform on a team. And we really want you to be better at being a team member after than you were before. So we're going to you're going to create a team contract, you're going to tell your team lead what you want to get out of it, what skills you want to develop, and you're going to get 360 feedback from your team members. So that's the team effectiveness. The last thing is we want you to understand how social sector organizations work, what drives them, what are the key factors they're looking at. We want you to be more conversant in that in case you ever want to work in one, you want to be a board member in one, you want to be a consultant with working with social sector organizations. It's 5% of the US economy, and you should know how they work. Okay, so those are the 3 areas that we'll cover in class. We think this is a really high quality learning experience because there are a lot of wraparound services for you. So the first is you'll be working with an MBA team. We've selected the team leads. You'll hear from some of them today, but each of them has a background either in management consulting or deep knowledge of the content area for the client. Okay? Teams generally, not always, but they generally look like this. There's a team lead, there are a couple of MBAs, there's a graduate student from another school, one or two, and there's an undergraduate on each team. Generally, that's the constellation, the composition of each of the team. I mentioned I'm a co-instructor, Paul's a co-instructor. Paul's been doing management consulting for 25 years. I've been a consultant on the side for about 15 to 20 years. So we come with that knowledge. I also, before I came to Haas, I founded and ran 3 different nonprofit social enterprises. And Paul has been the board chair of 2 different social enterprises. So we come with deep knowledge of the sector and consulting. The nonprofit organization, I'll talk about them in detail in just a minute, but know that they have been selected. Some of these organizations have waited a year and lobbied me to get into S-cubed. What we're looking for from the client side is an organization that really makes a difference in the lives of people it's trying to serve. We're looking at senior level commitment to this project and work with you. We're looking at an organization that chooses a project that's really central to them. It's central to their mission. It's critical to their future. It's not a nice to have. We want senior level commitment from their folks. And then finally, we want to know that this is a really good match for our students. There's a question that's entrepreneurial. It's a really good match for questions that you can answer. So that's how we select the clients. And then the McKinsey coaches. So each team has a coach from McKinsey & Company. Some of these coaches have been former S-cubed team leads. Some of them are new to coaching with us, and some of them have been coaches for years. And their commitment is 1 to 2 hours a week to work with your team to deliver the best product for the client. So that's kind of the constellation around you. You will have your own McKinsey coach. You will have teammates. You will have Paul and me every Tuesday night to move forward. And that's why we think it's a particularly strong offering. All of the work you do in class is about your client. There are no other deliverables, right? It's all about providing the best solution for your client and our helping you to do that. So, any questions on this, on the course structure, or what you'd be learning, or how we'd be delivering it? Okay, let me talk about the clients then. Yep, let me go back. So here's the pretty logos. And here's the detail. So we have 9 clients this year. The first one is Acumen. Any of you heard of Acumen? Okay, it's an impact investing firm in the US, works internationally. They're coming back to us. This is their second consultation with us. The first time they wanted to know whether they should expand to serve in the United States. We made the recommendation. That's since happened, and one of the co-leads on the Acumen side was our client for Acumen last year. This is a very different question. This question is about, they are kind of known for being the best in the field of impact investing for marrying financial returns and social impact. And that's the real trick and the art as well as the science in impact investing. How do you gain financial returns, financial results, and social impact results together? Well, they're coming to us as best in field saying, we want to push the envelope. We want to see what could we be doing. So it's kind of metrics 2.0. What else could we be doing? And I don't know if Brian is here yet. He's coming from a lab. We'll come back to him. So the team lead will be here in a minute to talk about what he's looking for in team members. Let me just say, with team members, I want to speak to those of you who decide you want to bid into or apply for the class. It is not necessary. Sometimes team leads are looking for skills like financial modeling or marketing, and they certainly want those. But remember, they're choosing like 4 team members, and sometimes enthusiasm, personal knowledge of a space, wanting to learn something and having some ancillary skills is enough to get you in. So don't think you have to be an expert to take SQ. We're not looking for experts. Okay. All right, B3 Media. This is a UK-based, London-based organization that tries to open up opportunities for underrepresented groups into mainstream media. So this is performance art, media arts, artists who are very, very talented, often younger, and can't find the opportunities in the mainstream media. B3 has been doing this for a number of years and wants to up their game in terms of getting more access and having a sustainable business model that gets more impact and allows them to survive, because 60% of their funding has been government funding, and they want to flip that to 40% of their funding. So they're looking at earned revenue and better ways to serve the people they serve and involve them as contributors as well as beneficiaries. Is anybody here from B3? Okay, you can imagine what might be helpful here, right? Anyone with an artistic bent, anyone with experience in any kind of the arts writ large, anyone with marketing experience, anybody who's been a member of an organization so you understand member benefits. Those are the kinds of things that would be helpful in B3. I'm sorry?
Experience in the UK.
Experience in the UK, thank you. Yes, please chime in. Experience in the UK would be great. Okay. Bishop ODell is a local high school in East Oakland here. What Bishop ODell is known for is it's a Catholic school, and it is known for its emphasis on diversity, inclusiveness, social justice, and a good combination of athletics and academics. Okay. Their question to us is, how do they continue to get enrollment growth and financing while keeping that strong emphasis on social justice and diversity? The client lead on this one is a finance instructor at Haas. So he brought us this question. It's our first time working with them. Is Isha here? No. Okay. So you can imagine what might be helpful here. Some background in education, some background in enrollment or customer service, commitment to social justice, diversity and inclusion would be helpful. Any experience, well, you've probably all been to high school, so you come with something, right? Okay, all right, so Bishop ODell, local. CARE. By contrast, not local, CARE is an international aid organization. It's a poverty alleviation organization, and they come to us. Their focus is actually on empowering women and children that they have found in international development raises a level of health and education for families and villages. Okay? They also operate in disaster response. One of the things that's interesting about CARE, they're a first-time client for us. Paul Jansen, my co-instructor, is one of their board members. But the client on this side was a McKinsey coach for 2 of our former SQ projects. So it's coming back to us. And their question's a little different. Their question is, could we, should we, could we, so it's a feasibility study, create a global index for the best cities for women? Generally, they work in rural populations. Here they're looking in more urban impacted cities, and how can they identify the best cities for women in order to kind of shine light on that. So can you imagine what they might want there? International experience, right? Anyone who's lived in a number of countries. Any experience with women's efforts, anything with marketing, what else? Help me here. What else might they be looking for? Oh my goodness, Courtney, I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm so sorry. Courtney is our team lead. Please, stand up and tell us.
Hi, Courtney. So Nora was absolutely right. Anyone who is interested or passionate in further development, anyone who has any, similarly, any passion for working with women and children or any knowledge in that space as well. From a slightly more hard skill basis, would love to have somebody who has worked with members and who is able to strategically think through the building of an index and like what do you include, what do you exclude, how do you think about the weight you put on different factors, given that there are a vast number of cities in the world, and then looking to narrow that down. That's really the
Great. Thanks, Courtney. Sorry about that. Okay, all right. Center for Responsible Business is a center here at Haas, here at Berkeley Haas. Its focus is on sustainability, and this is a startup question. They want to know the structure, the strategy, and the structure for a new initiative called the Nordic Initiative. And this is focused on the Sustainable Development Goals set out by the UN, right? Worldwide goals. And what they would like to know is the executive director of CRB is the client lead. He teaches in Denmark as well as here. And the Scandinavian countries are farther ahead than the US on the Sustainable Development Goals. How might we work together to raise the level of our ability to meet the SDGs? But this is an idea at this point. It's an idea with some backing, no structure, no strategy, no identification of partners. Where's the larger funding picture? What's the communication? So if you're interested in startup or sustainability or building a plan or wanting to know how to do that, CRB might be an interesting choice for you. Do we have Elon? No. Okay. Edgewood Center for Children and Families. I know you're here. Okay. So Edgewood is an organization started in 1821. So it's one of our older organizations in San Francisco that serves primarily foster kids and their families, but also other kids in real crisis. One of the issues for them is they have 7 acres and buildings in San Francisco, right? There are not enough foster families in San Francisco. Think about San Francisco and who's living there now, right? There aren't enough foster families. So what happens when you take in a foster kid? They need to be shipped out, not only to another county, but sometimes to another state. And if the goal is family reunification, how are you going to reunify parents in San Francisco with kids who are now in Utah or Florida? Right? So their question is, how can they best use that 7 acres? Should they build affordable housing for foster families? What should they do to make the best land use long-term for their kids and families? And we do have the team lead here. So you want to, Fernando?
So, like Nora said, Edgewood focus on youth development, youth at risk, and their question is how to better use the 7 acres they have, which they already currently have some constructions. And in terms of the team, I think based on those 2 subjects, what would be really helpful is people with background in real estate and finance in real estate, and also some knowledge or background in youth development. Could be also on policies on how to improve or help youth at risk. Also, like Nora said, like enthusiasm, it's also a good thing to have. And anybody who wants to learn about these subjects is also somebody that will be happy to have on the team.
Great, thanks. Okay. Essig Museum of Entomology is here at UC Berkeley. One reason I emphasize that is it's obviously easy access to your client, which is really nice, right? This is a museum that entomology, anybody know what that is? What? Insects, good, okay, all right. So their question is really one of the 2, I'd say, classic questions in social sector organizations, which is financial sustainability. What's our business model? How do we sustain ourselves, right? That's the question they come with. And we do have the team lead here. Andrew, do you want to talk about what you're looking for?
Hey everyone, Andrew. I just want to mention I think this is a really interesting question because the museum itself, I think, feels like everything is on the table. And so in terms of developing strategies for the sustainability, it's not just sort of an optimization question, it's really, what is the long-term sort of a niche that this museum should occupy. And so I think our team is going to have a really important role in that based on what the client is looking for. So I think I see this as largely a strategy case, and so I think diversity of experiences is going to be very helpful. And I think we'll be able to meet with the client and be able to get feedback frequently given their close proximity. If anybody happens to also have experience in entomology or ecology, I think that's obviously helpful, but certainly not required. And we may be able to get some graduate students from more sort of science backgrounds who can contribute to that discussion. Also things like marketing or fundraising or other sort of ways that help build sustainable sources of revenue would be helpful.
Great, thank you. Okay, Pahara Institute. So Pahara Institute is a leadership training program to increase equity and access to education for all people. Its founder was a co-founder of Teach for America, New Schools Venture Fund, Bellwether Consulting. So you've got a real leader in the field of education in Pahara. And their question is, how should they grow to create more impact in what they do. They have 2 cohorts, a kind of senior cohort, real leaders in education, and an emerging leaders cohort. That's what they do right now. What else should they be doing to really change access and equity in education in the U.S.? So that's Pahara, and we have the team lead. You want to talk a little bit about what you're looking for?
I will be leading the team on Pahara Institute. As Nora said, they're looking for an opportunity to expand and create more impact in the U.S. Well, initially in the U.S., it could go broader. So someone that has an experience in the U.S. Educational system would be really helpful. And also someone that has been in an NGO in an expansion situation would also be very helpful. But again, not necessarily. Like, great attitude is all we need.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the last one is here at Haas School of Business. There's a career management group that's looking at doing and operating very differently. In order to, they're going to try with 2 groups of students first. Those interested in social impact, those interested in technology, and they're trying to shift how they operate. Rather than having a career advisor who's an expert, let's say, in social impact, they're looking at building communities or networks of alumni and experts in social impact and other students who know social impact, and creating those communities that support a job search for our current MBAs. So anyone with any interest in HR, in professional development, any search experience, and I assume, Essig, I didn't see you, so I'm speaking for you? Yes, okay. All right, so that's our 9th. Let me pause for a minute, and as he comes in, I'll let you come in for a minute, Brian, and then come back to you on who you're looking for with acumen. Okay, any questions on these clients? You have a sheet that has a little more information, right? And you also have information about how to get in touch with the team leads should you want to. Any questions on these? Happy to answer anything. I've talked to all of them. Yes?
So how, maybe this is a question for you or for the team leads, how are the team leads assigned to each client, and what was that process?
Okay, great. So that kind of does happen behind closed doors. I'm looking for somebody with management consulting experience primarily. Because what I know then, the team lead knows, is how to scope 15 weeks of work, where you need to be in week 5, where you need to be in week 7, how you deconstruct a question, which is something then as team members you all learn, right? If this is the question, what are the buckets or the sub-questions you need to answer that overall question? Where do you source data? How do you operate on a team? So primarily, they're management consultants. The 1 or 2 that are not management consultants either generally have strong knowledge of the field itself, or are very close to management consulting, have done some other kind of consulting. Because that's the key position, truly. If you're a team member, you want to be on a team that's strongly led, and that's a differentiator. There are lots of, well, not lots of, but there are courses at Haas where you work in teams, and we have found that having a strong team lead makes a huge difference. There was another hand, yeah.
So it looks like some of the organizations are local, but others aren't.
Yes.
So does that mean there will be a lot of like remote communication?
Yes. I wish I could say we'd fly you to London, which would mean everyone would try to sign up for that one. But there will be remote communication. The London person will fly here once to meet with the team. Other than that, it will be remote. But I think that's the only one. Care, actually, yes. So there are a couple of leads. The main lead is in Atlanta. Yes. Pahara is in Napa, which is just north of here. Yes. Maybe you like to get up early in the morning. The UK, you will have to deal with the time difference. Although I will tell you that I've gotten communications from Mark Booth, who's the founder, all times of day. So he's very available and travels a lot. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you mind talking a little bit more about the Center for Responsibility at Haas and what they're looking to do?
Yes. Is there anyone here who's worked with CRB? I happened to have somebody in my class yesterday who's working on this project, so that's why I asked that. So the Center for Responsible Business is, you can look them up online and see what they do, but they generally have different pillars that wrap around sustainability and to a lesser extent human rights. Okay, so it's changing the way we do business is their focus. So their focus really is businesses and the business world. This is a new venture for them. Okay, and it's really, you know, human rights and sustainable development goals. Many of them are around the environment. So broadening from the environment to the other sustainable development goals, what they looked at is who's doing this well. Came across Scandinavia. It's a place where Robert has worked and has good relationships. So the question is, could we really, as academic institutions, help advance those goals? That's where they're headed.
So is it specifically to like the Haas community or to Berkeley, or is it?
No, it's way beyond. The home would be here and in Scandinavia, but it's for the world. It's starting in those countries and sustainable development goals more broadly to the world. So it's very outward facing. Sure. Brian, did you want to chime in as a team lead from Acumen about what you might be looking for?
Oh yeah, hi guys. I think for the Acumen project, I think there's people that have a really strong interest in impact investing. It'd be helpful if someone had some financial modeling experience or had a strong research background, but I think there's someone that has a strong passion for the topic.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to then call up, thank you Angelica, thank you Evelyn for being here, 2 of our team members from last year. Come back to this. And I'm going to ask them, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to ask them to tell you a little bit about their background, where they're, what program you were in, why you took S-cubed, okay? Just a little touch lightly on your work stream in your project, and then we'll come back to, did you get what you were looking for, what was difficult, what was helpful? So, Angelica, why don't you start?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Angelica. I'm a second-year full-time MBA student here at Haas. Before coming to Haas, I was a teacher and school administrator in K-12 public schools for 8 years. And so my client, as you can see on the screen, was One Justice. One Justice is a legal aid organization based in San Francisco and Los Angeles. They do direct service work as well as consulting with other legal aid organizations in the state of California. And so the project, the initial question that we tackled as a team, One Justice had been experiencing a lot of issues with their retention. They were losing a lot of their staff members, and part of their hypothesis was, or their hypothesis was that the reason for that was compensation. And they had this theory that staff members were not quite sure how to best utilize their benefits. And so they brought us in to help them think about how they could improve their benefit offerings and help improve staff members' education and knowledge around how to use those benefits and really be able to maximize them. We'll talk about the workflow later. Okay.
Sure, and why you took S-cubed?
Yeah, so I took S-cubed because, you know, when you come to Haas, you hear a lot about management consulting and what a great skill set it is to gain. I knew I wasn't going to be a private sector consultant. I like that coming from the social sector. I want to stay in the social sector, and so wasn't particularly interested in working with a private sector organization, but wanted to get the experience of working with a client and helping them solve an issue that is real and tangible and like it's directly going to affect their ability to impact their beneficiaries. In particular, I was interested in working on this One Justice project because I think a lot of the issues that they were facing with their own staff members in terms of retention and talent management and how do you keep really good people in a field that unfortunately doesn't pay well was something that resonated really strongly with me as a teacher, as a former teacher. I thought there were a lot of connections there between the legal aid sector and K through 12 work, and that is a path that I'm potentially exploring coming out of Haas. And so I also thought there was a lot to gain out of the particular project that I was going to be working on.
So my name is Emily Polk. I am a second-year Master's of Public Health student in Health Policy and Management. So shout out to all the other grad students besides MBAs. You guys should all take this class. It's awesome. So my client was Safe and Sound, formerly the San Francisco Child Abuse Prevention Council. They provide direct services in terms of prevention and mitigating the impact of child abuse in San Francisco. And they're also pivoting, and this is kind of where we came in, to more advocacy work and kind of positioning themselves as a thought leader in the state around preventing child abuse. So what they wanted us to do was, well, I'll actually start by saying they came to SQ actually years before, a couple of years, maybe 2 years ago. And the team that year did a project for them where they developed a report on the economic cost of child abuse. So quantifying in San Francisco how much it was actually costing the city to have this kind of epidemic of child abuse. And it was actually really impactful. They rolled it out actually across the state. They did a city and then a state level report as well. And they wanted to come back because they had great experience, but then wanted to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Now what do we do with this report now that we have all these numbers and data? And so we started off with a bunch of interviews of other counties, like how had they used the report, and figure out what is the next step, and that was kind of part of scoping the project. And we ended up coming up with an action tool for Safe and Sound to map out what the strategies are to prevent child abuse using that report, and an action tool where they could work directly with other counties to kind of implement those different solutions. Why I came to social sector solutions, so my background is in advocacy and nonprofits. So I was really excited about kind of getting the strategy side of how do you work with an organization to like change how they work to influence their strategy, having come from that nonprofit background. I also wanted to work in a team with a client. That was something that was new to me. And get those kind of hard skills of how do you scope a project, how do you design your deliverables, how do you make recommendations without actually having any real influence over somebody. So that's why I came.
Okay, so benefits, what you got out of it, what was difficult, and what didn't you get out of it?
So as I mentioned before, the reason I took SQ was because I wanted to like experience consulting for myself and see like how I felt about both what was appealing and what was unappealing. I think what maybe I didn't get out of the project was a solid conclusion on how I feel about that. So I think like I think I understand more deeply why people like it, but I also understand why it might not be the pathway for me, if that makes sense. So I didn't get a clear answer on that, but that wasn't necessarily, I don't think the fault of the course. It's just my own, like, oh, I'm weighing different things. I think what can be challenging about the course is that you are thrown into the work right away, right? Like I think within the first week, you are already meeting with your client, and so there's not a lot of time to like ramp up like as a team before you have to be in front of the client and producing deliverables. And I think for my team specifically, I think that led us to perhaps not be super aligned at the beginning and not really set out like strong team norms. We filled out the team contract, but I think that was mostly just like we didn't really like sit back and think about it really carefully. Like how are we going to manage conflict when it comes up? Like there will be conflict on a team. It's good to have healthy conflict. Like how do we encourage that? How do we respond to that as team members? And so I think our first like couple of months were rocky, and I think right around the time of our midterm presentation was when we had to take a step back and kind of like reevaluate how we were functioning as a team. So I think not having done a good job of that at the beginning, I think that was probably our key challenge. I think another challenge was I think that our client was looking for a very specific answer around like how do you improve compensation without spending money, which is difficult. I think she, like the CEO thought like if we just put in programs in place where we increase the financial literacy of our staff members, they'll learn how to use their benefits better, and that's going to lead to like better retention. That was not the case, or at least it wasn't what we found in the initial part of our project, where we spent a lot of time doing a needs assessment with staff members. And so navigating that was a little bit tricky, but a really valuable experience, because I imagine a lot of consulting projects take those turns and directions.
Could you just also add what you particularly worked on in your work stream? I want people to get a sense of what the actual work might look like.
So our work streams were divided into two different parts of the semester. The first part of the semester, I worked on really deeply understanding the needs of staff members, and so that involved doing a deep analysis of exit interviews that had been done with staff that had left, and then actually going into the offices and doing like 30-minute interviews with each of the, I think we interviewed like 29 of 32 staff members to be able to identify like what are the issues that are leading to potential retention problems, as well as what are your specific financial needs, how is the organization meeting them or not meeting them, what are your attitudes towards your compensation, both in terms of salary and benefits. During the second part of the project, that was much more focused on creating deliverables. And so my partner and I, on that work stream, delivered recommendations around financial literacy trainings and created this, like, I learned a lot about benefits last year. So I think I'm gonna be a much more informed employee moving on. Creating a really, they had like information on benefits like in a million different places and like 60-page documents that, as you can imagine, are like really hard to like nobody sits down and like reads through those things. So developing a really easy to use, easy to navigate, easy to understand guide on what benefits are, like what do these terms mean, like what's the difference between a copay and whatever else I'm already forgetting. So that staff members also had that to work with.
Thanks, Angelica. Emily.
So what I think I took out of the course and learned, I think the first thing is generally how a consulting project is structured and how to do each of the kind of like formal pieces. And I think that applies even outside of the consulting world. So like even this summer as an intern, I felt like I was scoping my work, mapping out the deliverables, like presenting and making recommendations. And I felt like I was using a lot of those kind of skills that we got in this course. So I'll make a plug you in if you're not interested necessarily in pursuing management consulting, that these skills really do apply across the board. I think speaking professionally in front of a client was a big thing that I learned. We had the chance to kind of speak every week to our client, present what we were learning, and have that dialogue, and I felt like that was a really valuable thing for me because I hadn't worked directly with a client before. In terms of what I felt was challenging, I think our client came in with some very big questions, and we worked with them to map out what the final product would look like. But I think we had push and pull in terms of aligning on was what we were creating meeting their goals. And I think we kind of had a winding road to our final project. And reflecting back, I guess I wish I could have learned more in terms of really where to push and where to pull, because it was kind of a roundabout route I think we took in the end. In terms of what our work streams were, if you want to touch on that. So having come from the advocacy world, and I'll say my team was actually not super standard. We had mainly policy students on our team. They did more deep dive into what are the strategies that counties can use to prevent child abuse, and I took the route of more, or my work stream was more, how do we build a tool that you can use with different communities to decide on what to do. So it was more like a workshop tool, a facilitation tool that I was kind of designing. But I think to your point of, it's sometimes hard to build team norms when you jump right in. I think because we didn't have very clear work streams at the beginning, because we didn't know what our product was for actually a little while, we were able to kind of develop a really cohesive team, in that we were kind of figuring it all out together from the beginning. Kind of every week we'd kind of redistribute the work and kind of think through the issue all together. So that actually worked out really well for us.
So let me open it up to questions. Okay. Questions that you have. And could you repeat the question, because we have a microphone, because we want to put this on the website so anybody who can make it today can hear the information.
So I just had a question about the implementation of projects. Is there any data around like how many of the projects have been implemented or how clients have been satisfied? And have you seen within your clients that a lot of your recommendations have been implemented so far?
So the question is, how are recommendations implemented? Have we seen if they've been implemented with our specific clients?
I can start. Ours, we designed like more of a report than a recommendation at the end of the day, and so they haven't released it yet, in part because I think they wanted to build on it a little bit more. So I don't know about the other projects, but at this point ours hasn't been released.
So the recommendation that we made to the client was specific benefits that they needed to increase or add to their package. We also said we know you've asked us to look specifically at benefits, but you really need to think about salary, particularly for this one group of, this one level of employees, because what you are paying people is not a livable wage in San Francisco, and it directly conflicts with your goals around equity, because a lot of the folks in that role happen to be people of color. And so, like I mentioned before, I think it was a little bit tricky to navigate because it's not like they had set aside a certain amount of money to be able to spend on improving benefits. And so what ended up happening after a presentation, and during the presentation, we actually directly named the fact that our concern going into this presentation is that we'll deliver this report or this presentation and then it'll sit on the shelf and nothing will be done with it. So we invite you to ask difficult questions, tell us where you might be struggling with some of what we're presenting so that we can work through some of those things with you. And so I think we delivered the presentation in May, and in June, they held a vote with staff members around, I think they had a little bit of money, do we increase salaries for program associates to a level that is, I think they increased it $7,000 or $8,000, or do we implement this recommendation around increasing retirement savings contributions? Both of which were part of our recommendations, but they didn't have the money to do both. And so the staff members voted to increase salary for the program associates. So they were implemented in part, I think, and in an important way. So I'm glad we brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I can also tell you we have a number of repeat clients. Mm-hmm. One justice, for instance, went out with the recommendations and shared them with local legal aids, and went out to a number of their social justice partners, shared what they had found and recommended they come into S cubed. One of the things we're most proud of, we've not done a quantitative study of our past clients, but we do know about different things that happen in the world as a result of the recommendations. So something like Education Pioneers, which gets people from other non-education backgrounds into leadership positions in education. One of their question was, how do we expand? They came to us 3 times. How do they expand beyond the Bay Area? And so the team came up with, these are your next 5 cities. They went to those next 5 cities, and as of 2 years ago, they were using the same formula, the same interactive tool we had created. So we hear anecdotally and from time to time more than we've done a study. And in fact, if anybody is interested in doing a study of past SQ clients, I'm happy to provide an independent study or some small stipend to do that, because we don't have the quantitative data. I will say that everything we do is focused on getting real results. Our nightmare is that the study will sit on the shelf, and we push everything toward that not happening, from selection to the ways students recommend. But that's what we have. Other questions? Yes?
To what extent do you, if this could be either in your case or more generally, do you teach the clients the process that you're using so that in case one of your assumptions is wrong and they need to tweak something later on, they can actually rebuild the model themselves instead of needing to come back to you? Or was that not part of the process?
Yeah, I can start.
Start with a question if you wouldn't mind.
How much did we have to kind of teach our client throughout the process what we were kind of doing so that they could go back and change it if they needed to, versus kind of doing it a little bit more independently? And I definitely think that, so our client had already worked with S-Cube, so they knew the general model of how it worked. But because we were talking with them every week throughout the process and updating them and really being a thought partner with them throughout, it really wasn't a final product that like we were just handing off to them and they didn't really know what to do with. They had been kind of a key player in the decisions along the way and in knowing kind of what went into it. So if they want to change it, edit assumptions, which I think we did actually a couple of times throughout the year, that's done in partnership and very doable.
I would echo the same. We were in constant communication with the client, walking them through the steps as we were going through them. I think that's really important for building investment in your final product, in your final presentation and recommendations. We didn't necessarily like build a model or anything like that, but we did know that the client was going to take our recommendations and then present them to their board themselves for approval. And so like try to make that as easy as possible by even giving them a deck and being like, look, this is the deck that you can use with your board, that walks them through the same process, the same thought process and research that we had done to get to those final recommendations.
Any other questions? Yes.
It might be more specific to Angelica's project, but with compensation being obviously one of the larger issues in the social sector, and there's no like right or wrong solution. What was like, did you hear like a common story throughout your interviews or when you were working, I guess, on a project?
Yeah, I think the common thread was, we love this organization. I love the work that I'm doing here. I think it's really important. And the organization itself encourages a lot of innovation. But I don't see myself here for the long term because the pay is just not sustainable.
And then what the draw for them in the first place was just their passion for it?
Yeah, so people were really drawn to the mission and really passionate about the work the organization was doing.
Okay.
But we're sort of seeing it as this is a temporary 2-year thing. And then I need to go do something else because I just can't pay off my loans and
yeah.
They have a lot of pretty young employees, and by the time people hit 30 and are starting to think about owning property at some point, which is hard to do here, or having a family, the decision to stay at One Justice was a lot more difficult for them, specifically because of compensation, and it wasn't necessarily something that just teaching someone financial literacy is gonna fix. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, do you as a team ever consider or feel like you have a license to go further upstream in solving the problem? Right, because you've got a retention problem, which is a compensation problem, which is probably a business model problem, which is probably a fundraising problem, if you followed it all the way up. Did you guys feel like you had the license or flexibility to do that on the project?
We didn't, so I'm sorry, the question was, did we feel like we had license or flexibility to go further upstream? We did not end up making any recommendations around fundraising just because we felt it wasn't within the scope of the question. It hadn't been something that we had talked about explicitly with the CEO, but I think the message that she needed to hear was compensation really is a huge issue for your staff members. And I think understanding that key point and that key takeaway, then she was gonna have to change her fundraising model specifically. Yeah.
I will also say, since we're designing a syllabus for this year, Paul and I, yesterday, the day before, we're looking at one of the sessions before you make your recommendations is, okay, and how can you make recommendations beyond the specific question asked to make sure that you get the maximum result, organization-wise. So we kind of prompt you to try to do that. This was a tricky client, but we do prompt for that. One more question, then I want to wrap and
Speak to the time commitment and what your daily what it would look like a week would look like for you potentially.
Sure. So the question was time commitment and what a normal week would look like. So of course there's the 3-hour kind of teamwork session, plus the lecture as part of that. But mainly classes doing the actual work of the project with the team. And then outside of that, usually I have a couple hours of work, for the next week to bring back to the team, maybe a meeting or two with a team member if we're working together on a part of it. So it was consistent, I think, throughout the semester. It is a chunk of work, but I really enjoyed it and found it meaningful, so worth doing.
Yeah, similarly, 3.5 hours in class on Tuesday nights, and then My partner was the same for both of my work streams, and so we were like we both like routines. It was great. So like every Friday, we would block off like 1 to 4 p.m. and that was our time to get our work done for that particular week. There were weeks where we like worked maybe like 10 hours, for example, outside of class on the project. For example, the week that we went to the office to do interviews, we were there all day. And obviously like the week or two right before your midterm presentation, your final presentation, you can expect to put in a little bit more time to make sure that you and your team are aligned.
There was a hand over here. Was there a quick question? Okay. Join me in thanking you both for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to wrap with a couple of important pieces of information. One is, we'd love to have you in the class, but we ask you to really only apply if you're serious about making this commitment. As you heard, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of thought, it's challenging. It's challenging. And we'll deliver for you, but we're asking you to deliver for us as well, and not for us as much as for your fellow team members and your clients, because at the point at which you are accepted, you're accepted in part for some skill or knowledge or enthusiasm you bring. You're not replaceable on a team, right? You're really not. And your team and your client are dependent on you. There are no drops and adds for social sector solutions. So this is true for everyone across the board. I've talked to other schools like public policy and public health, and Haas rules will apply here. So once you're in, you can't drop for the obvious reason, again, of the client and the team. When you get the application, so here's how it works. MBAs, you bid points. If you have enough points, you get in. We then send you an application. Everybody else, we send you an application directly, or you access an application directly. The application asks you 3 things. It asks you, provide your resume and let us know your experience. What relevant experience do you have here? And it can be, we've had very, very random things that come into play and may not show in your resume. So let us know what you bring to this kind of venture. What do you want to get out of it? And be thoughtful about that, because we're going to then turn to your team lead and say, your job is to make sure this person gets more experience in presentation skills to a client or whatever it is. And the third thing is rank order your interest in the projects. You have 5 from your most interested and down, and we will work our hardest and almost always give you your first or second, sometimes third choice. Okay, so think about those. The bidding, you have, maybe you don't have the dates here. Okay, so as you can see, second year bidding is going on now for MBAs, so is evening weekend. First years is in a couple of weeks. Everybody else, okay, your applications are due right before midnight on November 8th. No joke. Okay, we get more applications than we can take in. What happens with your applications is we'll go over them to make sure that they're complete, meaning you really answered the questions, right? And then we will divide them up among team leads. I will look at every one of them, go over them, and we'll try to start to sort, all right, where are your interests, where might you be a good fit? And by the end of November, the team leads, the instructors will meet, and we will assign teams, and we will get back to you the end of the last week in November, which is right after Thanksgiving, about an assignment or not. So you will hear back directly from us. Questions about the process? Yes?
I understand you can't give a scientific answer to this, but for MBAs, how competitive would you say bidding is?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I got asked that last week, so thank you to the person before you, so now I can answer your question. There was a whole range. I look back 3 years, and there was everything from 200 to 999 points. That's what I can tell you. There was, in 2 years, there were 2 people, I think 2 people, I'm not sure how many, who got in with 1 point at the very end in the rebid. So, it's a range, and it does change year to year, but that's what I saw over 3 years. This is not entrepreneurship or new venture finance or IBD, okay? You're not at that range, but neither is it just a throwaway, because there are people who bid serious points for it. I would say talk to people from last year would be your best tactic. Sure. Any other questions? Okay, so we like interdisciplinary teams. You know, we are committed to interdisciplinary teams. That's not to say we have had all MBA teams, okay? But as you heard from Safe and Sound, it was an all MPP team, almost an all MPP and MPH team with one MBA. We really want students from other schools. That's a serious request for us. I'll give you an example. The best way I can do this is an example. We had a client a few years ago. It was an organization that trains young people for jobs in computing, and it was heavily MBAs, an undergrad and an MSW student. It was the MSW student who was the only one, as they were making the recommendations, who said, wait a minute, we're talking about kids here in high school. How are they actually going to get from Oakland to Silicon Valley? And the whole plan had to change. Okay, and so we know we need people looking from different points of view. So we really encourage you to apply, but to also understand that at Haas there's a grading curve. Okay, so it may be different from the school you're used to. That you're working in interdisciplinary teams, and that's a plus for you, but it's a little harder because people speak different languages coming from different disciplines, right? So, but we believe the benefit, both for you, and we have had regularly at the end of each year, we have people say on the teams that the best part of this was working with people from different schools, from very different disciplines. So that's a long answer to a shorter answer, which is we'd love to have you. But understand it's a real commitment. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for your interest and for being here. Hope to see your applications.